Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Hello, and welcome to an inspiring episode of the Foster Friendly Podcast. My name is Courtney Williams, alongside Travis Vangsnes, two of the hosts here at this podcast. And today we are so excited about this conversation with Judy Wright. Alongside her late husband, John, Judy fostered 55 children over 12 years. Many of them were medically fragile. Their home became a place where readiness was ordinary, bassinets carried up in the night, doctor visits folded into the week, and children held without any promise of what would happen next. In 2012, she and John were named Michigan Foster Parents of the Year by the Michigan Supreme Court. Pretty cool. What a great honor. She did not set out to become a writer, but became one because of some things she witnessed that could not go unwritten. Just Hold Her, a book here that I've got that I read in just a couple of days. Such a great story. That book draws from her spiral notebooks that she kept during one child's long medical vigil. And it is her debut memoir. So welcome, Judy. Thank you for taking time.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you. Now, I've done a lot of podcasts with Courtney. I've never heard her introduce a guest with inspiring at the outset of the episode. And I want to also say this, we get some amazing guests, of reaching out, and unfortunately we can't get everyone on, and, we can be booked out pretty far. I remember when I first heard from, maybe it was your publicist or whoever it was, and it stopped me in my tracks. I just was like, oh my gosh. And so I emailed the team. Courtney was like this, and then you got the book, devoured it. So not to set you up with too much pressure out of the gate, but it's already off. It's been off to an amazing start. So I will say, this episode is going to be a bit different as we're really going to focus on your memoir and your journey with one particular child. So, but before we dive into that, if you could just tell us a little bit about you and John and how you started fostering and kind of when all that journey began.
Sure. My husband and I had been married probably about 25 years. We had just recently moved to Michigan for his job. And we had 4 children that we cared for. The youngest 2 were still in high school when we moved to Michigan. And it had been our dream to be foster parents. But as you know, raising your own children with fostering can be challenging. And my husband was a corporate pilot. So he depended on me a lot to take care of our kids because he flew internationally. So I met someone in our neighborhood who was fostering for a Christian agency, adoption agency, where all you had to do was take care of the baby until they were placed with their adopt home from the birth mother. And it didn't sound too threatening to me, so I thought this would be a good way to start. So we did that, and we had 15 babies within 15 months. And it was a great way to start because no one was forced into anything. The birth mother was given an opportunity to choose adoption or take her time and choose parenting. So if this baby went back to mom, I knew that she had time to go over what her options were and that she chose parenting. So that was great for us. But eventually we got to where we thought we might be ready for the next step, and we went to state foster care. So we both just jumped in with both feet, went to all the training sessions, just embraced it. We loved every minute of the process of getting to be a foster parent. So that's how we started.
Yeah, and I love how you shared that story too, because it doesn't always start both feet in, right? And
right.
It can be respite care. It can be short-term things. It can be emergency care. There's different ways to start, and just get your feet wet to see if fostering is right for you. So
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, well, let's get into this story
Okay.
that I did devour in 2 days. I was telling Judy before we started recording, I get a lot of requests to read books, especially around foster care. I have a whole shelf, probably 50 books just on foster care, and I've read all of them. But this is one that I couldn't put down, and it is one that my teenage daughters are now reading too. So just a great story. And the story began in 2009. So this isn't recent, but it's something that has just stayed with you. And I want to read the back of the book out loud because I feel like it just gives people a glimpse into what you wrote and why they should pick up the book too. So it says, "Would you please just hold her until she dies?" I said yes. They placed the smallest baby I'd ever seen in my arms and sent us home. 2 months old, 4 pounds, blind, deaf, and tethered to monitors. 27 diagnoses, no plan. Every 2 hours, a new cycle began. Diaper, reading, injection, feeding. I pricked her heel and wrote the number in my spiral notebook. Protocol said one thing, her body said another. In the margins, I wrote what didn't fit, a weight that held, a number that rose. One notebook filled, then another. They asked us to hold her until she died. Instead, we stayed. Just Hold Her is a true story drawn from those notebooks. 674 days lived in 2-hour increments where the only measure that mattered was morning. So There we have it.
Wow. What a jacket of a book.
So Judy, as it says, you were asked to just hold her until she dies. What was it like being asked that question? And what was the depth of that question to you?
Jaden was our 45th placement. We had cared for preemie twins and other medically fragile babies. Some came to us without even knowing they were failure to thrive, and we had to work with them to help them live. So hearing this request was a little different for us. Never had anyone up front said, "Wait, like this baby's going to die." It has always been my belief to say not just why, but why not? Why not? Why not try this? Why not be here for this child? There aren't a lot of people that are available to do that, and I wanted to be the one that was available. I wanted to be the one that was ready to hold her. And if she didn't survive, our children were grown and out of the house, living independently in different states, all 4 of our children in different states. So it was a challenge, but it was something we wanted to embrace.
Why not? So explain some of what you remember of the medical needs that were explained kind of at the outset that you were told.
Before we could even meet the baby, the NICU nurse stood with us for over 2 hours going over her case and her chart. They told us everything that they thought we needed to know, everything that we were privileged enough to know. None of that was about birth mom, of course. It was just about the baby. So she stood there and just went over everything. And to me, I'm a gut person, right? I'm just like, let me see this baby. I got to see this baby so I can see if it's someone I can take care of. So it was challenging to listening to everything that she had to say. The baby had been born with communicable disease, was blind, deaf, had brain bleed, sepsis, born with no skin on her hands or feet, and was insulin dependent, as well as having fetal alcohol and cocaine in her system. She had been in the NICU for 2 months, and they felt they had done everything they could do for her, and she just kept failing. And the latest attempt to get her released from the NICU was to put her on a high-calorie formula so that she would gain the weight that was needed to get her on her way out of the NICU.
Wow, that is a list. So especially in the first few months, as you took that on and you said why not and stepped in this amazing place. And holding her and caring for her, it sounds like it was a 24-hour ordeal. How did people step in to help you guys as you transition so that you could take care of yourself, showering, eating, just doing the basics for yourselves?
It's kind of funny you say that, because we had just moved, like I said, to Michigan, and we didn't have a lot of roots. We didn't have extended family. We had no one that we really knew. So my husband and I were just kind of a team. We did basically everything. But within a month of me taking Jaden into care, he, being a pilot, needed to go for training on a new G5, I think it was, that he was going for training. And he was going to be gone for 2 weeks. So he sat down with me with pencil and paper, and we wrote out a plan for what I needed to know to do when Jaden would pass. And, but part of that was trying to find someone to come, because I couldn't take Jaden to doctor's appointments or anything by myself, with the apnea monitor and the oxygen and everything that was involved with that. Like, she had a herniated umbilical, so I couldn't even let her cry for anything. Wow. So I found some connections through a doula training that I had done. People that were wanting and needing to get hours so they could be certified postpartum doulas. And I thought, I qualify for this. I can be the client here. So I contacted them, and they stepped up for me. And I say in the book, you have no idea that you need a shower, even if you're just sitting in a chair 24/7. Yeah. You think you're doing nothing, but you still need that shower. So a few of my doula friends stepped in and brought dinner and sat with the baby while I showered. Laundry, that can wait.
So my teenagers say too.
I sat in that chair 24/7 for 6 months, except for appointments. Yeah. And I've never had so much fast food in my life. We couldn't even have people in really to care for the baby or to care for us, because she was so susceptible to things. So we basically were doing most of it on our own, unfortunately.
Yeah. Talk about living sacrificially. What a great example. Caring for her, you tracked every injection, every weight, every feeding. I mean, everything, just the notebooks that you filled, and you tried so hard, and you're like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to do something, but she wasn't gaining weight. She gagged through every bottle. And as foster parents, there are rules, right? There's rules in the system that things we're told we can't do. One of those things is we can't feed a child in care breast milk. But from the very beginning, you felt like that was best for her. And eventually, it's your persistence in that saved her life. Tell us about that battle of getting that approved, and then all that went into getting her that milk, and the people that stepped up and just gave in that way as well.
This is the most glorious part of the story, actually. Well, I shouldn't say that before I say this. Let me say this first. Jaden was literally dying in my arms. We had visiting nurse and a county dietitian that would come 3 times a week. And it got to the point where the county dietitian said, Judy, I don't think we'll need to be back next week. This baby is failing. She was sleeping 23 and a half hours a day. She was being force fed every 2 hours. She gagged every time she ate. The apnea monitor would go off. If I laid her down on the changing table to make a bathroom run, the apnea monitor would go off. If I ran to the refrigerator to get something to drink, the apnea monitor went off. So I was tethered as much as she was to that machine. And because she was failing so much, I had tried to find a new pediatrician rather than the ones that we were trying to stay connected with out of the NICU experience. I had tried, and as you know, if you've done foster care, it's challenging to find pediatricians that will take on a new client that's Medicaid. But a foster friend of mine gave me some information, and she was very interested in endocrinology, which with Jaden being insulin dependent, that was a plus for us. So I had called and I said, I have this foster baby, insulin dependent, and I need to have her seen by a pediatrician. They said, we'd love to have you. The appointment's in 6 weeks. So when the county dietitian looked at me and said, we might not need to be back next week, I said, I have this new pediatrician. If she can just hang on long enough, I know I can get her into this new pediatrician and maybe she has some new advice for us. And she said, Judy, let me hold the baby. You call that doctor's office and say, if you don't bring that baby in tomorrow, you're not going to have the baby to bring in. I mean, it was that dire.
Wow.
It was awful. I made that phone call with tears just streaming down my cheeks. But the office manager said, let me check with Dr. Earls. And a few minutes later, she came back and she said, Dr. Earls will see you tomorrow morning before office hours. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of something that changed this baby's life. Because since I had just taken this doula training, I was all gung-ho on the breast milk, human milk for everyone. I was never, back in that day, I was not a big milk share supporter. I didn't know how it worked, basically, and I didn't know legally and all of that. But I just knew, I just had this gut feeling that this was something that we needed to try with Jaden. So I went to the pediatrician the next day. I said, this is my plan. This is what I need from you. I need you to approve breast milk for this baby so that we can at least try something to give her a chance to live. So this Dr. Earl said, we're going to give it a try. We got nothing else to try here. We're going to do it. So she faxed a letter to the caseworker, Nicole. And Nicole said, I'll let you know as soon as I know, because of course, as you know, we need state permission for this. So Jaden, with her medical needs, was appointed to a person in the state of Michigan. Like, I don't know what his title was. I'm sorry about that. Mm-hmm. But she contacted that person, got permission, and called me. And within 10 minutes of getting that call, I had breast milk in that baby's mouth.
Wow.
And you know what? She did not gag. She didn't. The apnea monitor didn't go off. Just in that first few ounces of milk, she totally relaxed. Never before, since the first meeting in the NICU, 2 weeks before she was brought into our home, every day I would go and try to feed this baby this high-calorie formula that they wanted her to have. And every feeding, the apnea monitor would go off. So with this, and she would never lay cradled in my arms. She would always want to be sitting up with her head tilted back. You had to hold the bottle in her mouth. You had to kind of tap on the bottle to get the milk to drip in. You had to tap on her cheek to get her to start sucking. And still the milk would pour down her chin. She wasn't wanting to ingest this formula. So the very first bottle, when she accepted it and would lay against me, it was like the most amazing thing. So we kept with the breast milk, this donated human milk. And within 2 days, she was no longer blind. She was looking at my face. And within 4 days, she jumped when the dog barked. So she was no longer deaf. And wow. I mean, I just get very emotional about this still, because it was the first time that I thought maybe this baby had a chance to survive. So then it was like, where do we get the milk now? That was the next challenge. And again, because of my doula training, I had met a lot of breastfeeding support groups. And I called one of the ladies that I met and she said, don't worry about that. She said, I know enough people. She was a midwife. She was a postpartum doula. She was a birth doula and a breastfeeding support person. So she had a lot of connections with people that had excess milk in their freezers and started collecting from everybody. In Jaden's breast milk days, she had 350 pumping mamas over 10 states and Canada.
That's amazing.
And Canada.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
and I can't even tell you all their names, of course. I mean, this milk just came from everywhere. And people still to this day have let me know that they chose to supply their milk to Jaden and had never met her, and just heard her story, and they wanted to help. So that's how all that went. It was just the most amazing thing. My husband would go out to the freezer and bring in this little Kroger bag and say, "This is the next to the last one. Like, I don't know what we're going to do after this." And we always kept a cooler on our front porch. The next morning he'd get up and he couldn't even carry the cooler in because it was so filled with milk. Just amazing, amazing stories. Yeah.
This may be a dumb question because I'm completely this whole realm for me as a guy too. I'm way out of my league. But do the women, do they know who this is going to, or is it sort of pooled into this wherever the needs may lie?
In this case, it was specifically for Jaden, and I had checked with the milk breast. Let me say this again. I had checked with the breast milk bank in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and found out they had a very healthy supply of breast milk there. It had all been pasteurized and packaged, and they charged $4.15 an ounce. I knew the state wasn't going to go for that.
yeah.
So the way that we did it, the state actually, as far as I know, they never even asked any questions, because it was proof that it was saving this baby's life. I had asked the caseworker later what it took on her part, because she was so supportive in getting us whatever we wanted anytime. I said, "What did it take on your part?" She said, "Judy, I can't even tell you." She said, "There was no protocol for getting breast milk for a foster baby. There was no protocol. We had to discover how to do it on our own and pursue that for you." So it's just interesting.
That's amazing. Well, as the story goes, you guys obviously sacrificed so much in this journey for her, as you've kind of described, just even sleeping on a rocker, living room for 5 months, seeing your family and friends as much as you normally would, that kind of diminishes any normality of a day, like even showering is tough, for almost 2 years. How would you answer if someone asks, why was she so worth this to you? And then also, what did your adult children, I guess, come to think of all that as well?
Why was she worth it? I don't even know how to answer that question, Travis. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It was, there was just a connection there with her and I from the beginning. After weeks and weeks of her not being able to see, and then we have her on my shoulder and I can just feel her presence. And I look down and she is looking at me. I mean, that's a connector right there that you can't just dismiss. She always had to have her little hand on my neck. She was always skin to skin. I had her in baby wraps. If I was allowed to carry her anywhere, like going into the doctors and things, I always had her in a sling or a wrap. And then I used the stroller for her equipment, the apnea monitor, the oxygen, and all of that. A diaper bag was in the stroller. But I never put her in a stroller. I never put her in a bouncy seat. I never did anything until she was stabilized enough to be on her own. And my children, first of all, they hardly ever heard from me.
Where's mom?
Exactly. I thought she was my mom.
Right.
But, being in their young 20s, they're out living their life and creating their own universe, basically. So, and they had been in our home with other babies, and they knew what our passion was, and they supported that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And talk about a passion. I mean, it's very evident, just your willingness and your answer to that question of how do you even answer that? It's
yeah, Travis.
I know. I mean, hey, I didn't write that question, but that's a great, but that's a great answer. How do you? I mean, that question is, wow.
Yeah. So the story continues. In January of 2010, when she was over 6 months old, it was finally discovered that she was born without a pancreas. And this is extremely rare, almost always fatal, and yet her body defied every expectation. What were the consequences of her not having a pancreas, and what were some of the things that had to be different because of it?
I think the biggest shock to me was that people gave up on her because of that. The day that she had the MRI, she got a really bad headache or sinus infection, and I had to take her to the emergency room that night. And the doctor said, "Why did she have an MRI?" And I said, "Our pediatrician wanted to check to make sure the condition of her pancreas, if she even has one." 3 doctors in that emergency room started laughing at me. And they all 3 said, "Of course she has a pancreas. She's alive, isn't she?" So 2 days later, when we got the results of that MRI and found there was no pancreas, my husband and I were like, how are we going to do this now? Now she's 9 months old. She's 9 months old. She's been in our arms for 9 months. Now we find out she has no pancreas. Now we have to definitely, according to these 3 doctors, we have to prepare to let go. But when we went into the pediatrician office to get that announcement that there was no pancreas, everybody in there was laughing and dancing and celebrating. And we're like, what the heck? What is going on here? Well, they were just so thrilled to have an actual diagnosis. So they knew what they were working with. And I appreciated that. And I thanked them for that. But I was just like, this isn't going to happen. We are definitely losing this baby. So when you say, like, when did you know she was going to be okay? I can honestly say to you right now, I have no idea how long. I still am on the edge of my seat wondering what the outcome will be for this child's life. Even though in April she turned 17. She's 17 years old, had her golden birthday in April. So she is definitely defying all odds. I don't know that there's another case like hers anywhere. And maybe some of your viewers know of something, which would be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
I know that you can be born without a pancreas if you have the GATA6 mutation, which is a genetic disorder. Jaden doesn't have that. Hers, I believe, was from the communicable disease that she was born with, eating away, which probably ate away at the skin on her hands and feet and gave her some other disabilities as well. So I think it's really just a 1 in a billion case.
Jeez,
But the thing is, it's like and please don't get me wrong, I think NICUs are awesome, amazing, incredible. But for this little motherless child that was laying in a bassinet for 2 months by herself, knowing that she had been born with that, I think they just dismissed it. They really didn't feel that she would ever survive.
Yeah.
So this really is a miraculous story. And I got to see it. I got to be the witness. And that's what I thank God every day for choosing me to be the one to hold this baby, get to know this baby, and to witness the miracles that happened around this child.
And that goes back to the question before of, these,
It's okay. Yeah.
it's not that these NICU nurses didn't care, but they don't have the time and the energy and the
don't
yes
have the
to
time.
give to a child like this, like you were willing
They
to.
don't even have time to hold the baby for a bottle. That baby sits in the isolette and, head back and bottle in. And of course, other babies in the NICU have that coming in from their moms and grandmas and grandpas and dads, coming in to visit the baby in the NICU. So there is that skin to skin, and there is that bonding and holding and tenderness that happens. And this baby just never had that opportunity.
Kind of some of the stuff that you said, the story is almost so profound and beyond belief that it, like your reaction to that one question is like, how do I even listening to this thing and how it unfolded. I mean, one of the great lines by one of my favorite writers talks about, he says, love gives you eyes. And I couldn't help but think of how, you and your husband had eyes to kind of see the possibility, or maybe someone that, the medical community gave up on, or just this can't happen. And by giving, your eyes, your gaze, through love, something kind of mysterious also seems to happen. And we can't explain all of how it all worked and what God did, but just, it also appeared that at some point your love, her love and her eyesight looking back and gazing at you, like love gave her eyes, like in the returning the gaze in a way. Yes. And it's just, I think why this story really touches me so deeply too is like one of my brothers suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car accident in 2009. And to this day, he's fed by a feeding tube and he cannot speak. Now he can spell, but he's trapped in his body. But very early on, when the doctors wrote him off and said, you're not going to make it, he's not going to make it, brain dead within 24 hours, whatever. And, it's a projection and it's cold, mm-hmm. and that's what they do. Mm-hmm. But my dad came in and said, no, he's going home. And that love, that like, and then Jeremy, and then he comes to life through love. Yeah. And yeah. Right. I mean, he's seen and not counted out, and he's sort of like, he's there, he's with us. So I think for me personally, I'm very deeply touched by that aspect of your story. So as we kind of continue through it, you did have to navigate, kind of the red tape and legal stuff of foster care and permanency. You wrote, it's one of the hardest truths of foster care. We're chosen to be the interim. We love these children with our whole hearts. We show up for them. We fight for them. We fold them into our families like they were born there. I love that. But in the end, we don't get to decide where they land. That's an insightful reality. When in her story did you start to realize she might actually survive, and what were the implications kind of that, where you really were like, yeah, this is...
After the diagnosis of being born with no pancreas, we were put in the hospital for 2 weeks and had her bed surrounded by specialists every single day, trying to come up with a maintenance plan to keep her alive. Because nobody knew what they were doing. I'll just be upfront. Nobody, and they'll tell you that themselves if you ask them. Nobody knew what the plan would be like for them. During that time, knowing that we had an accurate diagnosis now, and knowing that her parental rights were terminated, one of the supervisors at the foster agency was very excited because she knew of a family that would take her in. And these people, lovely, wonderful people, they had like 13 beds, and they took care of children born with half a brain and like really awful things. But this supervisor said, we're just so lucky to get these people. They said that they would take Jaden, but they want to meet her first. And I'm like, wait, we had asked the court not to place Jaden with anyone until she was stabilized. This baby just got out of the hospital. We just got the diagnosis. We have no idea if she's going to be stabilized. When she was in the hospital at 9 months, she weighed 11 pounds. Like, there was no room for that transitioning time. As we know, when children are moved it takes that a while to transition. They don't eat right. You have to have a little fat on those bones to get them you know, to handle all of that. But the supervisor thought we were just so lucky, we have to move on this right now. So we went in to meet these people after not wanting to for a long time. And when we met them, I placed Jaden, who was sleeping in her car seat, on the floor by my feet between my husband and I, because I didn't want her to be the center of attention. I wanted to hear their plan for taking care of this child. And did they walk with her, carry her skin to skin, or is it just medical? So they came in, and during our conversation, they mentioned they had a Jaden in their home too that had just died at Christmas time. And my heart just broke because I thought, my little girl is so sensitive to anything, any stress of any kind. Her glucometer readings would just skyrocket. So that was my first red flag. I was just panicked by that. But then Jaden started to stir, wake up. My husband reached down, took her little jacket off, took her out of the car seat, handed her to me. I set her on the table in front of me, and she laid her head against my shoulder, up against my neck, reached her other arm around to have her hand on my neck. And the supervisor said, "Oh my gosh, she's showing affection." And I'm like, yes, she is. She's a real person. She's real. And so they changed their mind about that placement. And then we were very desperate to find an appropriate placement for her because, of course, we had the opportunity to adopt her, being her foster parents. But I was already 57. My husband was, he's old. He was really old. And we just knew that this was beyond our capabilities to continue to provide for her. And then we wouldn't be able to foster anymore because she really was full-time. So it ended up that our minister and his wife heard Jaden's story, and they came to our home and met her, and they adopted her. They were approved for adoption. So that was really the best of both worlds because we had the opportunity to have a long transition. Mama Callie and Mama Judy, off to the doctors all the time, where Mama Callie would do this and Mama Judy would do that. And Mama Callie would come and spend the night, and Mama Judy would go play at Mama Callie's house. And we did it well. I think I was proud of us for doing that. The only thing that challenged that was the fact that after Jaden's 1-year birthday, where we had all of her pumping mamas come and her medical, the medical people, everybody was invited. They made a scrapbook for her from all of these people that had been feeding her. And a week after that, we found out that Jaden had a baby brother. And the agency called and said, "We are not asking you to take this baby boy. Your hands are full. We just wanted to let you know that this is what's going on." I said, "Please don't do anything yet. Let me talk to my husband." My husband said, "They are not separating these siblings because of us. We will take the baby boy too. And we'll just take, if they can't find adopt home for both of them, that's different, but they're not going to do it because of us." So we took Joey, and we had Jaden, and we took care of both of them and continued with the adoption plan with the minister and his wife. So it was funny. Callie and I often chuckled because we'd be walking through the parking lot she would have Joey in the baby sling, and I would have Jaden in the baby sling, and we'd walk, and people would always do this, the whispering and making up what they thought the story might be. And we just look weird. We just look weird. But they did a great job with the transitioning, and she always calls Joey her bonus baby.
Nice.
That was her bonus baby.
Can you also speak to what you wrote in the book about you guys and how your view of being attached with Jaden?
Well, people, that's always the number one question we get as a foster parent is like, don't you get attached? Like, how do you keep from getting attached? And our answer was always similar to what other fosters are. It's just like, you don't hold back on that attachment. These babies need attachment more than anybody because they may have never known attachment. And if they have, they need it even more. You have to be there for them. As humans, we can't function on our own. We need the touching and the loving and the eye contact. We need that to survive as a human. And you put that into a baby, that baby needs it even more because that baby doesn't have verbal skills. That baby doesn't have an opportunity to say what they need. They can't voice that. So the time that we stop being attached to these babies is the time we stop fostering.
Yeah. Kind of related to that, Judy, somebody asked you once, how do you really feel about transitioning foster children to adoptive parents? How do you answer that question?
I believe that children deserve to have a voice. I think not only do they deserve to have a voice, they deserve to be listened to. So when a child is transitioning to an adopt family, or even going back to birth family, there has to be communication between all of the parents involved and with the child. We have to know that the kiddos are comfortable with what's being done to them. In our house, we always had family rules, but we sat at the table with each child that came into care and had them voice their concerns and voice their opinions and create what the rules should be, including them. I just, when Jaden was finally transitioned to her adopt family, the psychologist at the church had said, whatever you do, as soon as they're transitioned to their family, fosters have to back off. They have to back away because this is the time that that child needs to know who their parents are, where they belong in this world. This is the time. So there should be nothing else going on in their life. So that hit my gut pretty hard with the attachment that Jaden and I had with each other. This wasn't just a normal, and how do I say normal foster relationship, but it was much deeper than most people would imagine. But I wasn't the leader now. Mama Callie had given me the opportunity to make decisions when Jaden was in my care. Now that Jaden was in her care, it was Mama Callie's decisions, her time to make decisions. So about 3 weeks after Jaden had transitioned, my gut is dying. I'm bawling every night because I know she's waking up. She needs to be fed every 2 hours. Is she waking up every 2 hours? I'm like so worried about her life,
Yeah.
like living. And about 3 weeks after she was transitioned to Mama Callie and Daddy Mark, I got a phone call from Mama Callie saying, my little girl's not doing too well. She's not singing anymore, and she's not playing with her toys. She's not reading her books. She said, I think she misses her Mama Judy. And for that, I give Mama Callie more credit than she will ever know, because she listened. She listened to that little girl who wasn't even 2 years old yet. But Mama Callie had had enough hands-on time with Jaden to know this little girl was struggling. So my response to her was, don't bring her back here. Let me come to her. let me sit on her new floor with her new toys, with her new parents, with her new puppy dog, and let me just be part of her life where she is. So I started going to Mama Callie's house to see Jaden 3 times a week for the next few weeks, and then gradually tapered off. We always had a little, text saying, like, I'll put this on the porch, POP, put on porch in 15 minutes, So if we had milk to give them or something and it wasn't our time to see Jaden, she would know to keep Jaden away from the window. We did try to respect everyone's wishes. But like I said, with Mama Callie, recognizing that Jaden needed a little more time with her Mama Judy, that was just crucial in that entire relationship. And I have to say now here, 17 years later, Jaden does FaceTime with me. She's still in Michigan. Her parents have driven her down here 3 times to stay with me. She stayed for a month one time, just had her own room, just like she'd never left. But, I asked Callie about that. Like, don't you feel threatened? Like, people think adopt families feel threatened by this. And she said, Judy, it isn't love divided. It's love in abundance. And I thought, let's just think about that for a minute. It's love in abundance. When Jaden would cry when it was time for me to leave, I said, Callie, are you threatened by that? She said, no. She said, I always cried when I left my grandmother's house too. She said, that didn't mean I didn't love my parents. It just meant I was going to miss my grandma. And so these people were amazing and are amazing with these kids. So it made it a little easier.
What a story to share. Just so appreciate you. And one thing I do want to highlight before we started recording, you also shared with me that Jaden did give her blessing for this book and for you to share this story.
She did.
Share a little bit about that.
As I was writing her story, I was sending it. I wanted permission, like approval. I wanted Mark and Callie and Jaden to know what I was writing. We're a team in this after all. So I was sending a chapter at a time to Mama Callie, and then Callie was sending it on to Jaden. And we were talking on the phone one day, and she says, wait a second, Jaden just texted me. And she says, oh, she's ready for another chapter. It was just the cutest thing. So I talked to Jaden about it on one of our FaceTime calls. I said, honey, is there anything, after you read your story, is there anything that you want me to add to this book or anything that you think needs to be said? And she said, well, I read every chapter. And I said, and what did you think? And she said, well, I'm brave. And yeah, that got me. Yeah, she's brave. She got it. I mean, she gets it. She knows her story and she gets it.
And I know you probably don't like hearing this because I know it's hard to get any of the praise for it, but you're brave as well. I mean, for you and John, to put yourselves out there the way you did and to help defy all the odds and to just keep saying yes to this precious soul of Jaden. Thank you.
It was an amazing adventure. And like I said, I'm just so thankful that I was the one that got to witness it.
It's hard to really move on to even kind of close this interview down and even come off that story. But I'm glad that Courtney, how you kind of ended that and kind of feels like put a bow on that to bring it back to Judy as well, to like, you both are brave and courageous, and John, and just like, it is a beautiful story. We're in a time where with the polarized world and, it's, someone said, some people need stories more than food to stay alive. It's stories like this that do remind us of our shared humanity and love, and that the world, there's so much goodness and good people, and heroes are out there wearing capes that we will never see.
And it's amazing if you just make yourself available.
Yeah.
It's amazing what will come your way.
Yeah. Well, what a line. Just make yourself available.
And Travis, before you transition, I was just going to say, I think that's what hit me so hard with your book, Judy. I mean, my family have been fostering for going on 20 years, and we're at the season right now. We're kind of tired. We've prayed, we've talked. We don't feel like it's our time to stop, but we're taking kind of a mild break. We're still on call. We're still doing emergency. We're not taking long-term placements right now. But reading your book brought me back to my why. Like, why do we do what we do? And so I'm going to shift things a little bit, Travis. I encourage you, listeners, go buy her book. If you're a foster parent, you're like, I've heard all the stories. You have, but just reading this and read it. Don't read it in 2 days like I did. Take time to digest it and to really recognize like why we do what we do. And it was what I needed in this season of life. And so I really appreciate you putting it into words.
I'm glad.
Well, you take it from here, Courtney. You have the wind in your sails of where we're finishing this episode.
Yeah, no, I just, we also do have a John and Judy Wright scholarship. So before we end this call, I want you to just finish telling people about that scholarship and how they can get involved.
Thank you for that. My husband passed away 13 years ago from non-small cell lung cancer from Agent Orange. When my 4 children were trying to think of how to honor him, and they chose to do that by creating the John and Judy Wright Scholarship, which is through Ennis Center, which is a foster agency that we work with. And it's to help anyone who's been in foster care go on for a secondary education. Anyone that wants higher learning of any kind, they can get help. It's probably not going to pay their full year, but it's there to help in any way that can be, with books, computers, laundry.
Yeah, it all matters.
Sheets and all, like whatever. It's there to help for that. So
we'll make sure we have a link.
Quite an honor for my kids to do for my husband and myself.
Amazing. So we'll have a link for that in the show notes.
Yes,
definitely.
And proceeds from our book go to that scholarship.
Very cool. Well, as we close this down, we love to have our guests finish the sentence.
Oh no!
Here's another question.
Oh no!
What kids in foster care really need is
you. They need you to advocate for them. They need a voice. They need to be heard. Our country has gone through so many transitions and thousands of years. Something is always transitioning. I want us now to focus on our children and to be an advocate for them and to listen when they need something. How many people do you know that think that children just manipulate from the time they're born? I mean, we hear it. We hear those things. And that's not at all what a child is. A child is the child of God who was sent to us for gifts and loving. And we will learn more from a child than we will learn from anybody else on this earth.
I agree with that.
Thank you, Judy. Thanks again for what you did for Jaden, what you did for many children, what you continue to do through your scholarship and writing this book, a gift that keeps on giving. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Travis.
Great having you. Yeah. Thanks so much.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.